Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, too. ATN Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. So we're a couple minutes late. We had some camera issues, but everything's all fixed now. And we are ready to go. So, interesting day. We've got some breaking news before we jump into the show. For one, we have Donald Trump's pick to be the National Director of Intelligence, replacing Dan Coates. This would be John Ratcliffe. It turns out that, hold.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes John Ratcliffe. He is out of the running. Donald Trump tweeted this earlier today. Our great Republican Congressman John Ratcliffe is being treated very unfairly by the lamestream media. Oh, my God. Somebody actually used the word lamestream media other than, of course, Sarah Palin. Rather than going through months of slander and libel, or what we call looking at his actual record, he said, I explained to John how miserable it would be for him and his family to deal with these people. And so, of course, he pulled his, he basically, he left. He's no longer the nominee. So that's awesome. So that's good breaking news. We also have some more good breaking news, and that would be NYPD officer Daniel Pantaleo. He just got fired from the FBI. Or I'm sorry, not FBI, NYPD. It's one of those days. So a New York judge had said, look, we believe that you should be let go for your part in the death of Eric Garner. So remember, this is the guy who put the Garner in a chokehold for selling loose cigarettes. This is when he said, I can't breathe. And the officer kept choking him until he eventually died. And so, look, him being let go or suspended by the NYPD, it's a start, but it's not good enough. Obviously, this guy should not be a police officer after what he did. And I believe he should be brought up on criminal charges for his role in the death of Eric Garner. But at the same time, maybe we're moving towards that. So at least right now, he's suspended from the NYPD. And of course, a lot of this probably has to do with Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio was governor or mayor of New York, and he's running for president, and he just got in trouble for not doing anything about this officer that killed Eric Garner. So, yeah, he's been facing a lot of heat for that. There were chants during the debates where they said, fire Pantaleo, I think. And so, well, I guess that spurred him into action and said, oh, yeah, that's right, I got to take care of that. I have to do something about this. And so I'm guessing that he got it, a hold of his friends in the NYPD to finally say, okay, look, we got to get rid of this guy. Okay, look, that's a start. It's a decent start. Should more be done? Obviously. Of course. But for right now, it at least is something. Some sort of small measure of justice. I wish his daughter, Erica Garner, we're still alive to see this. But again, there is some slight measure of justice. And, well, we'll keep pushing for more. And hopefully he does get brought up on charges as he should be. Okay. So there's that. Breaking news, yeah. That's always fun at the beginning of the show. So we've got stories that we're going to talk about, including Donald Trump claiming to cure cancer. Oh, that's great. Then we've got, of course, farmers pushing back over the trade war. We have Trump supporters. What Trump supporters hate the most? You're going to love that. And then we have, of course, the FBI talking about who the real extremists are in this country and why Equifax will not be giving you $125 after all. So that's a story that's very interesting and, of course, infuriating. So that's sort of the breakdown that we're going to talk about today on the show. So stay right here. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. I want to give a shout out to patrons who support the show. Patreon.com/TYTNation, more important than ever. So today I got a little bit of bad news. My wife lost her job. So that sucks. And she's looking for a new one. Just couldn't give her enough hours. So anyway, let's give a shout out to some patrons here. Justin Thompson, Charlotte Guerin, Jeremy Hedberg, and Claude Almansi are new patrons for the day, patreon.com/TYTNation. There's other ways that you can support us, of course, through channel memberships, as well as, of course, through our, if you want to get merchandise and stuff, through our Teespring. There's a link in the description as well if you want to buy T-shirts and stuff. That would be awesome. I would love to go out there the next time I go to like a debate or a major city or whatever. Actually see one of the T-shirts that we sell. That'd be super awesome. So if you want to do that, get those T-shirts. They are available. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, of course they told her on a Friday. Of course. I'm so sorry to hear that, Zach. By the way, it's tough out there. No, what are you talking about? Greatest economy ever, says Trump. Right. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to the first story, and that is this.
There's never been anything like it. We will be ending the AIDS epidemic shortly in America and curing childhood cancer very shortly.
So that was President Donald Trump saying that under his administration, we will be ending AIDS and curing childhood cancer. Wow. Okay, hey man, look. Would that be great if that happened? Absolutely. The only problem is, it's not going to happen. He's lying. Of course he's lying. And look, there are some elements of truth of that, of course, but main thing is Donald Trump, of course, wants to take credit for the research and for all the stuff that is, and all the medical breakthroughs and things like that that have occurred prior or even leading up to his administration, and take all the credit for himself. I cured cancer. I cured childhood cancer. I'm the greatest president. You had nothing to do with it, as I'm going to show you. Now, here's the thing. So, again, he wants to take credit for this, right? Do you know he actually literally cut funding for the National Institute of Health? His proposed budget for the next fiscal year cuts that budget by over $900 million. Wait a minute. No, we're gonna cure cancer, and we're gonna take on the AIDS epidemic, but we're gonna do it with $900 million less. Wow. Okay. Well, now here's the thing, right? So, look, he said back in the State of the Union, back in February, that he would set about $500 million into research into pediatric cancer over the next 10 years. So it's $500 million for the next 10 years, right? Now, that is in the budget, but at the cost of research to other things. Again, because since he's cutting the National Institute of Health by almost $1 billion, right? So now the proposal would be a boost in federal spending on cancer, and that's good, but it's unclear, according to Kaiser Health Family Foundation, how meaningful the increase is in relation to current federal spending on childhood cancer research. And by the way, most childhood cancers, and this is good, the cure rate for pediatric cancer is around 80%. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of breakthroughs into treating childhood leukemia. Now, there are other cancers that are around 20% cure rate, And that's something that we definitely need to look into. So look, the money is welcome. At least he's not cutting that part, but he's only giving about $500 million over the next 10 years. It's about $50 million a year. Now, the National Institutes of Health estimates that its 2019 spending in this area will be about $462 million this year. So over the next 10 years, he's giving only $500 million. So $500 million over 10 years amounts to about a bit more than 10% increase. Now, that is far from having enough money to outright eliminate childhood cancer, as well as also ending the AIDS epidemic. So now, do you know how much of a difference this is, right? So again, Donald Trump, $500 million over 10 years, right? $50 million a year. President Obama promised $1 billion over 2 years. So that's $500 million every year. Now, that's what he proposed. Obviously, he got a lot less due to Congress and because he doesn't actually pass that legislation. He can propose it, but he can't necessarily pass it. That's Congress's job. So he ended up getting about $257 million each year over the next 7 years, or about $1.8 billion over a total of 7 years, right? So that's, again, adds up to about $257 million a year. Compare that to Donald Trump's $50 million a year, and you can see who's actually more serious about that. And to give a little bit of credit to Joe Biden, which does not happen very often on this show, Joe Biden is a huge proponent of cancer research, obviously for obvious reasons, right? Losing his son, Beau Biden. So now, let's go to HIV. Now, Trump said in the State of the Union that he would end HIV transmission by 2030. Now, the Kaiser Family Foundation says that is doable, but it is a daunting task. There's going to be a need for a lot of funding and a lot of action to be done. So now, is the administration really working on doing this, at least to the extent that they could actually hit this goal by 2030? Well, we don't know. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar, who provided details of the initiative after Trump's announcement, said the administration would target viral hotspots by providing local groups more resources. Okay, that sounds great. Using data to track the spread of the disease and creating local task forces to bolster prevention and treatment. All great things, right? Sure. At the time, neither Azar or other federal officials who briefed reporters offered any sort of cost estimates for the program. So if they're not offering cost estimates, i.e. we don't know how much it's going to cost, we don't know how much is needed to actually do what they're proposing to do. So no cost estimate and no actual money that's going towards it. Now, more details on this plan. Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland are among the 57 jurisdictions targeted under the plan. The president unveiled during the State of the Union in January to cut new HIV infection rates by 75% in 5 years and by 90% in 10 years. The president proposed spending about $291 million to kick off the initiative, but without knowing how much it's going to cost, how much effect or impact is that $291 million going to actually have? So that's the question, right? So as usual, it seems like there's not a lot of details in this plan on how much it's going to cost, and not a lot of resources. Again, $50 million per year towards cancer research. I mean, how much is that really going to do? I would love for President Trump to be successful in this situation. Believe me, I do. But he cut funding for research. And he cut funding and also has proposed very little to replace the funding that he had cut for the National Institute of Science and Health. So what is he actually accomplishing? Is he actually going to accomplish his goal? No, but it's a feel-good measure. It's, hey, look at me. I'm throwing a little bit of money at it. I'm doing something, and my supporters are going to believe me. And that's the big problem here, right? Because it doesn't matter. what he says or what he lies about or what his real position is. As long as he says it, he's got people out there that literally will believe in everything that he says. I don't get it. I don't get it. Now, as far as science is concerned, right? What's hilarious is that, oh no, we're going to use science, by the way, to cure these diseases, right? To solve the cancer crisis, to end the spread of HIV transmission, all great things, right? But it is kind of hard to see somebody advocate for science who doesn't actually believe in science. But again, right? We have an issue, one of the most important issues facing the survival of humanity, climate change, that Donald Trump, the president, does not believe in. New story out, right? We just lost 11 billion tons of ice in the Arctic because of warming temperatures. 11 billion tons. That's an insane amount of sea ice. And what are we doing about it? Nothing. We have a president who doesn't believe in doing anything about climate change because it is a, quote, hoax from the Chinese to hurt American manufacturing. He doesn't believe in science. He doesn't believe in vaccines. He had come out as anti-vax, and then, of course, when he got criticized for it, was like, oh, no, I do believe in vaccines now. No, you don't. No, you don't. So, excuse me if I don't think that he's serious about science and health. His administration, on the health portion, tried and unsuccessfully tried, I should say, to take health care or health insurance away from 30 million Americans by repealing the ACA. And since they were unable to do that, they have been slowly chipping away at that piece of legislation, which was not great to begin with, and is now even worse. So, again, excuse me if I don't believe that he's serious about any of the stuff that is generally pretty good that he is proposing. I don't believe that he will do it. But he sure does want to take credit for it. And so here we have a terrible person that is pandering to people who unfortunately will believe everything he says. It just makes me think back to when he said, oh, I'm going to take care of the opioid epidemic, right? And there were people around there that believed him. There was a man, Trump supporter, former Trump supporter now, who used to go and play guitar at his rallies during 2016. Right, during the election. He lost his son to opioid addiction, right? And he saw that Trump did absolutely nothing to do anything about the opioid epidemic. And so he's like, look, I don't believe him anymore. I don't believe this guy. He's lied to my face. He said he was going to do something. He never did anything. And that's unfortunately what these promises will end up being once again. Because he is a pathological liar of the worst variety. Okay. Moving on. All right. All right. Now, if there's one thing out there that upsets racists more than racial minorities being in proximity to them, it's being called racist. Now, some Trump supporters at his Ohio rally recently complained about being affixed with that label, and then immediately responded during the same interview with some very clearly racist remarks. Now, this is from The Atlantic, who did a bunch of interviews with Trump supporters at this Ohio rally, and here's some of the results. Now, one man, 74-year-old Richard Haynes, told a reporter, "We're all tired of being called racists. You open your mouth, you're racist. My daughter is a liberal, and she's using that word all the time. We don't talk politics. We can't. All the time, she always accuses me of hate." Haynes told The Atlantic that he's not a hateful person. In fact, he had just returned from a missionary trip to Thailand. And he explained that he's also not a bigot, like his own father, who didn't like black people. He said of Donald Trump, quote, Donald is not a racist, you know. He makes a statement and they take the words out of context and try to twist everything so that he's a racist, and I think it's going to backfire. Is that it? So, now, okay, he claims Donald Trump, not a racist, right? Okay, so let's go through and let's examine some of the things that Donald Trump said. On some of the Central American countries, right? And maybe it's not the Central American countries that he called this. I forget exactly where he called this, but you remember calling these countries S-hole countries. Now, I remember that. How is that not racist? When you call an entire country a crap hole. Or, okay, let's go to something that's a little bit more, a little bit easier, right? Labeling Mexicans criminals and rapists. How is that not racist at all? How is denying black people apartments at Trump Tower, despite having good references and good financial history? How's that not racist? How's constantly referring to black Democratic congresspeople as having low IQ? How is that not racist? I'm just kind of curious, right? Now, I'm not saying Donald Trump is a KKK, white sheet hood wearing, burning cross, racist, right? And what I'm saying is that he does believe in a lot of those old racial stereotypes and doesn't question them at all. And so he just blurts out things that, were acceptable back in his time, right? Because a lot of people believed in those stereotypes. And again, he still believes in them. And so he blurts it out and he's like, what? Why? How is that racist? Because it is. Guess what? Times change. Times change. And it was African countries, by the way, and Haiti, and one of the Central American countries, El Salvador as well. Of course, a lot of Trump supporters, they don't call those countries Central America, by the way. They call them Mexican countries. Because there's more than one, apparently, more than one Mexico. But anyway, there's more. 2 women who had driven an hour and a half from Lexington, Kentucky, told the Atlantic's reporter that Trump's critics were, quote, wishing him towards being a bigot. No, we don't wish anybody to be a bigot. And that one of them cited her own family's racial diversity to defend herself from charges of racism. This is good. Rosanna, a 50-year-old who declined to give her last name, she said, quote, I'm sick to death of it. I have 13 grandchildren. 13. 4 of them are biracial, black and white. Another 2 of them are black and white. And another 2 of them are Singapore and white. I believe that would be Asian. You think I'm a racist? I go and I give them kids kisses like nobody's business. Oh, because, that immediately makes it so that any racist thought that you have is completely dispelled. No, that's not how that works. Turns out you can be a racist if you have black grandkids or Latino husband or wife or whatever. Those people are not your shield. They're not your get out of racism free card. You can have racist feelings and still be friends with or be married or even have children that are of, another descent. I mean, look at Ann Coulter. I don't quite remember where she adopted her kids from, but she's still a racist because she says very racist things and has very racist views. Even if they're not about her kid, there's still a view about a race of people. But now Rosanna, she said that she actually didn't want to join in the chant of send her back towards Ilhan Omar, but had this to say, quote, I don't want her stinking Muslim crap in my country. Her friend, 48-year-old Amy, added, Sharia law. Sharia law. Well, wait a minute. I don't want her stinking crap in my country because it's Sharia law. show me one example of Ilhan Omar trying to spread Muslim Sharia law. You can't find it. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. But here's the thing, right? My country. Oh, was it Lori Ingram? Yeah. So it wasn't Ann Coulter. It was Lori Ingram, by the way. Ann Coulter's just racist. Yeah. But anyway, here's the thing, right? So they say my country, my country, my country. Well, what makes it your country more than hers? She's an American. Oh, no, it's because she's Muslim. And apparently you can't be a good American and be a Muslim. Look, I've heard this rhetoric before where, some of these ultra right-wing pundits, they say, well, you can't be a good American and be a Muslim at the same time. They're incompatible with American values. Well, that's not true at all. And Sharia law, by the way, Sharia law sounds a lot like old Christian law. It's basically the same kind of thing. So you might want to look that up. But anyway, by the way, Sharia law. They don't even know what Sharia law is. And that's the irony here. But Rosanna said this, quote, "That's not America," who questioned whether Omar had illegally entered the U.S. She's a Muslim through and through. She wants all that here. Now, why would you question if she had legally entered the United States? Again, how is that not bigoted and racist? Ilhan Omar was a refugee. She fled Somalia. A lot of that stuff, right? The violence, the extremism, the poverty. She's now an American citizen. Same as you. Same as you. Well, actually, no, not the same. She's better because she actually represents what America is supposed to be. Somebody who believes in the American dream so much, or at least her family, that her family chose, out of all the places in the world to go, they chose to come to America. And they chose to serve this country. She chose to serve as a congresswoman so that she could make this country better. Not Sharia law, not more Muslim, but better. As in good policy, better health care, better education, to help people, millions of Americans, just like Rosanna, by the way. But see, here's the thing. They don't see it. Why? Because she's black and she's a Muslim. They see her and they think, no, she's the other. I don't like her. I don't trust her. Well, you know what that is? That's racism. Finally, there's another Trump fan outside the arena. Said the crowd in Greenville, North Carolina had gotten carried away by chanting "Send her back." Okay, hey, that's great. They did get carried away. In fact, it was a terrible racist chant. But then he added, "I'd buy her a ticket so that she could go on a cruise back." She's a very ungrateful person. Look at that black Somali. But we were so gracious and kind enough to take in from her crap hole of a country. We're the good guys here. We saved her, and she has the audacity to be ungrateful, to complain. Look at that mindset. That's racism. Why? Because it invokes the white savior complex. How dare she complain about this country when we were so kind as to let someone like her into my country? That's what that is. That statement is filled with white supremacy. Our country is better because white people run it. And so we're so benevolent, though. We're such good white people. We're such good Christians, right? That we have deigned to share this country with people lucky enough to come here. So you better not complain or we'll send you back. That's what that is. This is why we call Trump supporters racist. And if you don't want to be called racist, then there's one pretty simple thing that you can do. You stop being racist. Okay. We'll come back. We got Trump's trade war. Then we got extremism, right-wing extremism. So stay right here. We'll be right back. Please like and share the stream, and we'll see you in a couple minutes. Around the nation. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a couple of super chats here that I want to read real quick from you guys. Monica G says, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I appreciate that. She's a little devastated because she has like really bad anxiety. And so when they told her, boss is like, I need to talk to you tomorrow, right? She's like, oh, great. Am I getting fired or what's going to happen? No, she got laid off because they didn't have enough hours for her. But still, you don't tell somebody with anxiety the day before, hey, I need to talk to you is something really important, and it being the boss. She spent all day worrying yesterday. So, again, she's got really bad anxiety, and that does not help. And then Zach Sherman says, my mom lost her job too. Hope this helps. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope she, finds something soon and she's able to recover. Greatest economy ever, guys. Greatest economy ever. But thank you for your support. Okay, so let's no music on that one. YouTube's being very, very crazy about copyright. So yeah. So I'm being careful with everything, even though I paid for that song. Still being very, very careful. I'm only using music that's that is on YouTube. So I'll replace that soon. Anyway, okay. So let's move on. Let's get to the next story. We'll talk about Donald Trump's trade war and the economic disaster. Armin Fury. Now, President Trump's trade war continues to hurt farmers all across the Midwest, and they are getting very angry about it. Now, recently, President Trump tweeted out that he would be adding an additional 10% of tariffs to be placed on Chinese goods on top of the 25% that are already replaced or already in place. So now, that's bad. Already, it's been reported that China has been looking to other markets, such as Brazil, in order to buy their agricultural goods. So that's really, really bad for American farmers because for a long time, especially when it comes to soybeans, you had China buying a lot of American soybeans. So that has led, of course, to a lot of anger. Let's go to a quote from Roger Johnson, president of the National Farmers Union. That's the nation's second largest general farm organization. Now, he talked to Bloomberg, and he said that Trump's latest tariffs would hurt American farmers even more. He said this, quote, trade policy is not a game. It has real and serious consequences for rural America. Immediately after President Trump tweeted his tariff threats, already low commodity prices slipped yet again. The long-term implications for our country's reputation as a reliable trading partner are likely to even be more damaging. So he's talking about long term. I mean, who's going to trust to trade with America if we continuously go back and start ridiculous trade wars? So that's what Trump's doing. And of course, he talked about commodity prices. He talked about markets. And boy, are the markets going insane. Now, Bloomberg had reported that U.S. soybean futures were on track for their worst week in 3 months, and that hogs were set for their biggest slump in a year. Now, those are actually two of the biggest U.S. agricultural exports to China. Now, Johnson said, quote, it may take President Trump just a few minutes to write 280 characters, but family farmers and ranchers could be dealing with the fallout for decades to come. But hey, I thought trade wars were fun and easy to win. That's, again, what Donald Trump had said about going into a trade war with China. No, do you know how much fun we've had with this trade war? How easy they are? Exports of American soybeans to China fell from $14.2 billion worth in 2016 to only $3.1 billion worth in 2018. You know how much loss that is? That is 78%. Who's winning this trade war? Who's winning? Who's winning? Because for me, from my perspective, it looks like China's kicking our ass. Now, if you ask Donald Trump, he says, oh, no, it's China that's paying massive tariffs. In fact, he talked about earlier, I think it was a couple of months ago, after the first round of bailouts to these farmers, that, oh, no, it's China that paid the $16 billion. That's where we got the money to pay the farmers. No, China does not pay these tariffs. He has no idea what he's talking about. You know who pays the cost of the tariffs? It's U.S. importers. That's who pays the cost. And so this is basically a tax on American goods. That's what this ends up being. And by the way, China, as I showed you, they've bought billions of dollars worth in agricultural products from America. They've gone somewhere else. So we lose out. This is double stupid. And so now farmers, of course, are fed up by this, right? Now farmers like Bill Gordon. Now he's a farmer in Minnesota, and he said this, quote, "It's crazy. You sit there and try to raise a crop and do everything you can. You fight Mother Nature like we did last year and again this year, because, of course, flooding that we've had might be related to climate change. And then you come to find out, oh, hey, by the way, the government got in the way, and now you don't have a market. They took the market away. Soybean farmers have sunk their own money, blood, sweat, and tears for the last 40 years into building the Chinese market up and getting trade partners and building this two-way relationship. Then it gets taken away overnight. You start to lose your patience with anybody in government in general. When the market drops 30 cents on a tweet, it's frustrating." This is what President Trump has been doing with his ridiculous trade war. And, by the way, he's using taxpayer money to prop up the soybean industry. Farmers don't want that. Yes, a lot of them decided to take the money because they were desperate. They needed the money. But they're like, we don't want a government handout. We don't want a government check. We want our markets back. We want to go back to selling our product to, at this point, the Chinese or whoever would buy it. But with this ridiculous trade war, all they're stuck with is handouts. Now, you've got more here. Now, this was a while ago, right, during the first round or after the first round of bailouts. But here you had Iowa farmer Larry Engler, who told CNN that Trump's trade war combined with the flooding meant that he and his family had lost a lot of money. When asked if he had voted for Trump in 2016, he said, "I did, but I'll never vote for him again." There's more. Another Iowa farmer, Robert Ewalt, told CNN that he regrets voting for Trump because of the trade war. And so when they asked him, he said, you going to vote for him again? No. That was his answer. And there's a lot more stories. And surprisingly, there are still farmers that are sticking by Donald Trump. And for some reason, I don't quite understand why. Oh, no, he's doing the right thing, or he's trying to do the right thing, and he's just doing it in the wrong way. Yeah, that's it. No, you bet on somebody who doesn't actually care about you. He doesn't care about farmers. He doesn't care about you. The only thing he cares about is making more money for himself and about winning. Doesn't matter what he wins, as long as he wins something. But believe me, this is a losing strategy. He's been a complete disaster for the middle of this country. And this is not something, by the way, that you can fix by putting in another president or a Democrat or another Republican. No, what's happened is that he has done long-lasting damage to the Midwest and to the country at large, not just on trade, but actually in a lot of different ways. And what's going to happen is that whoever gets into office next, whether it be an establishment Republican or a Democrat, you're going to end up having to clean up this mess for the next few decades. That's the disaster that is putting an idiot like Donald Trump in charge. All right. moving on here. Iowa Farmer does seem redundant. Now, what are the biggest national security threats inside the country? This is domestic. Let me start that again. I got my terms mixed up here. So, what is the biggest domestic security threat in this country? Now, if you're say, Islamic extremism, then you would be absolutely incorrect. If you're to say right-wing extremism, then you are 100% correct. Now, this is according to the FBI, who recently released a memo warning that conspiracy theory-driven domestic extremists are the biggest danger in the country. The memo, dated May 30th, describes anti-government, identity-based, and fringe political conspiracy theorists as likely to motivate extremists to commit criminal or violent activity. Now, in the memo, the FBI says that the document is the first bureau product to explicitly discuss the future threat from domestic extremists driven by modern conspiracy theorists. They said, although conspiracy theory-driven crime and violence is not a new phenomenon, today's information environment has changed the way conspiracy theories develop, spread, and evolve. In the FBI's assessment, these conspiracy theory movements very likely will emerge, spread, and evolve in the modern information marketplace over the near term, fostering anti-government sentiment, promoting racial and religious prejudice, increasing political tensions, and occasionally driving both groups and individuals to commit criminal or violent acts, especially as we move into the 2020 election season. The FBI later in the document also defines very likely as a greater than 80% chance of something occurring. Yikes. Yikes. Again, this is right-wing extremism. And finally, the FBI is saying, oh, right, it turns out that we have a lot of dangerous people in this country that are driven by the right wing and not just Islamic extremism. Great. Finally. Look, I know it shouldn't come as a shock. Anybody who pays attention to the news knows that, most of the extremism in this country, most of the violent attacks haven't been coming from left-wing groups or Antifa, or haven't been coming from, Islamic extremists. It has been perpetrated by white right-wing terrorists. That's what's been going on in this country. But, of course, for years and years, the focus has not been on right-wing extremism. It has been on Muslims. It has been on African Americans. It has been on pipeline protesters. It has been on all these other groups that actually are not a danger. When has Antifa actually killed somebody? Now, I don't agree with their methods. I don't think that you should punch Trump supporters. As much as sometimes you might want to, you don't do that. You don't perpetrate violence. But Antifa's never has never killed anybody. But white right-wing extremists have. They're the leading cause of domestic terrorism in this country right now. And at least now, though, you have the government that's actually acknowledging the role of right-wing ideology in creating this extremism. And of course, it's backed by ridiculous conspiracy theories. I mean, here you had recently Trump's FBI director, Christopher Wray, telling Congress that most of the domestic terrorism arrests made so far this year have been associated with white supremacy. In fact, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security has warned of the threat of white supremacist terrorism since early in Trump's presidency, when obviously it had started to really rise. Wray even referred to this white nationalist extremist violence as, quote, a persistent and pervasive threat back in April of this year. The memo also explicitly cites both Pizzagate and QAnon as examples of modern fringe political conspiracy theories that have already been implicated in violence. Now, in case you're not aware, Pizzagate, right? The big claim in Pizzagate is that high-ranking Democratic Party officials were operating a child sex ring out of the basement of a pizza shop. That ended up having that pizza shop getting hundreds of threats. And it ended when there was a person that literally came in and started shooting. This person thought, oh no, I have to go in there. I have to save the kids from this horrible Democrat sex ring that's happening in this pizza shop. You know what they found? He found nothing. No basement full of, children, nothing. But he thought, oh, I was saving the kids. There were no children to save. In reality, this person, driven by insane conspiracy theories, put people, real people, humans, in danger. They put kids in danger. And then, of course, there's QAnon, right? QAnon is the belief that somebody in the government, known as Q, the only Q I accept is John Delancey, by the way. No, these people think that there's somebody in the government that's giving us this information, right? And that it's Donald Trump, who, by the way, is a former friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and was involved. Like, he literally had Epstein and Trump cocaine-fueled sex parties with 28 girls. Some of them might have been young as 14 years old. So children, essentially. They think that guy, Trump, is going to take down a sex trafficking ring in the government. Really? Really? I mean, it would be comical if it weren't so incredibly dangerous. And it has led to events like this. In June 2018, a Nevada man used an armored truck to block traffic next to the Hoover Dam. The man, who was found to have several weapons inside the vehicle, referenced QAnon directly and discussed related conspiratorial beliefs after his arrest. So he was trying to bring attention to the QAnon conspiracy theory by being incredibly dangerous. Now, the incident only came a few weeks after a different man claimed a homeless camp in Arizona was actually the site of child trafficking. After law enforcement came to investigate and found nothing, he repeatedly alleged a law enforcement cover-up, so much for being, of course, pro-police, and referenced the QAnon conspiracy theory as he and armed group members searched for additional camps and engaged in, quote, criminal activities, according to the memo. Again, here's the thing, right? These fringe right-wing groups, now they say, oh no, we're in favor of the police, we're in favor of law enforcement, except when we're not in favor of the FBI, which, by the way, the FBI has done far more damage to left-wing movements than the right-wing. And, oh, we're not, we're supposed to be in favor of police, but then there were two far-right extremists that literally murdered police officers. I mean, this is the insanity that is driven by the far right. So what have we done about it traditionally? Well, prepare to be very disappointed. A former Department of Homeland Security counterterrorism official talked to Yahoo News and said that while the threat may be real, it is very unlikely to be mitigated anytime soon. He said, quote, nearly all, if not all, the intelligence analysts focusing on domestic extremist groups at DHS have left or have been put out of work during the Trump administration. There is no one there to do the work to investigate or stop it. Now, look, you can blame Donald Trump for this, right? And yeah, I do. He's accepted a lot of conspiracy theories as fact, and has even pushed his own before. But also, not all of it falls on Trump, obviously, because this is a more complicated issue. Some of it also falls on President Obama. Now, President Obama, during his administration, received a report about right-wing domestic terror. This was done by the Bush administration. So they've got all this information that says clearly right-wing domestic terror groups are in this country and they are incredibly dangerous. Why don't we do something about it? Why don't we put more people in the department to investigate and to stop these terror attacks? What did Obama do? Well, first he tried to put more people in there. And then after the right wing complained, people like Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, complained about Obama targeting conservatives. Oh my God, I can't believe you're targeting conservatives. Well, first of all, it's not all conservatives that are dangerous, that believe in this stuff, right? But they don't care. They're like, no, you target any conservative, even the craziest people, and you are going after conservatives. And then they'll come up with conspiracy theories about that. And remember when Obama was invading Texas with Operation Jade Helm? Or remember when he was using Agenda 21 to put us into Hobbit homes? That was something spread. That was a conspiracy theory spread by a sitting senator, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. The insanity has gone all the way up into Congress. I mean, every time Louis Gohmert opens his mouth, it's a crazy-ass conspiracy that comes out. So don't tell me that these crackpots haven't actually ascended to the level of power. They have, and Donald Trump is the biggest crackpot of them all. But they were enabled by weak, feckless Democrats who never fight back. They get all offended, the Republicans do. But wait, if you're not an insane right-winger who doesn't believe in this stuff, if you just love tax cuts and deregulation, then why would you be so upset when they try to go after the people that make you look bad? That's the question. And I don't even know. Of course, not all right-wingers are wannabe domestic terrorists. That's insanity. But the question is, why defend them? It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Look, knowing that these people are out there, it's terrifying knowing that they can get weapons so incredibly easily. And they are armed with both misinformation and incredibly high-powered weapons, and we're not doing a goddamn thing about it. Okay. Oh, it's frustrating. All right, by the way. Okay. No. John Delancey is Q, by the way. That's who played Q on Star Trek. Just to respond to the comments here, Q is played by John Delancey. So that's what that is. Who did Q like better, Picard or Janeway? That's a good question. I know who Q didn't like. Cisco. You know why? Because Cisco punched his lights out. That's why. Which was great. You just punched Q. Yeah, I know. I love it. Okay. Anyway, one more story here, and you are also going to be frustrated about this one. Now, if you are one of the 147 million Americans who had their personal data exposed in a 2017 breach by Equifax and expect a compensation, then I have bad news for you. According to the FTC, few complainants will be receiving their promised $125 settlement from the credit monitoring company. And apparently, they think it's your fault. The Wall Street Journal, and so here's some headlines, right? The Wall Street Journal headline says the FTC says overwhelming number of Equifax claims means consumers likely won't get $125. Now, wait a minute. The FTC made a settlement with Equifax in order to, and they offered that if you have been affected, which 147 million people have been, then you have the option of getting $125. But as you're going to see, as we're going to do some math, right, we're going to see that the settlement was not set up for people to get that $125. So let me kind of break it down here. But before we do that, more headlines that are frustrating. NBC News said Equifax might run out of settlement cash, FTC warns. In the headline, and of course, with an admonishment about consumers rushing to get a $125 check. The New York Post warned the checks won't fly due to overwhelming response. So now, what does that make you think? The framing of that headline. I can't believe these people went and got $125, or they're trying to get $125 for having their data stolen. Yeah, it's called a settlement. It's called getting what you're owed from a lawsuit. That's our money. But apparently we're not going to get it, right? So let's get into why that is. Now, the settlement the FTC struck required Equifax to pay about $300 million to a fund that would provide effective consumers with credit monitoring services or cover payments of $125 per person. Now, I'm guessing, for one, $300 million isn't enough, and we'll do the math on that. But I think the expectation was, they'll just get free credit monitoring with Equifax. I don't know about you, but getting free credit monitoring from a company that had such terrible security that they allowed hackers to get our data that, by the way, we never gave them permission to even harvest that data. They just do it. They just collected it on us anyway because they're a credit monitoring company. And then, by the way, they also make us pay for the pleasure of accessing our own credit data or doing something like credit freezes, etc., which we should be able to do without them and for free. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't want to do business with that company. I want my money. Yes, I was one of the people who were affected. My data was breached. Now, I guess I was lucky enough to have really poor credit back in 2017. So I guess it was kind of worthless to hackers because they couldn't do anything with it. But that's still my information that they gained access to. So I want my money. But here's why we're not going to get that money. $31 million, just $31 million, or 10% of that $300 million, was only set aside to pay out checks. $31 million. That's it. So $300 million, not enough. But instead, $31 million. And by the way, you do have to ask, if you ask for a check, then one of the stipulations is that you already have to have free credit monitoring, right? Now, I have free credit monitoring. It's through Credit Karma. It's not like they're a sponsor or anything. No. This is because they're free and they're good enough. They're not 100% accurate, right? But they do a good enough job, and they apparently don't leak my information to hackers. But there are other ways of getting credit monitoring, and most of it is for free. You have consumer finance apps, banking companies, credit card providers. They all provide some form of monitoring, and most of it happens to be free. But Equifax says, well, we think they're just going to take our crappy credit monitoring, and they'll be good enough. They won't take the $125. Oops, that's a joke. An absolute joke. And here, the problem here isn't just Equifax. It's the FTC, who was too spineless to ask for a real settlement. So now, do you know how much money that they would need to give everyone, 147 million people, $125? 147 million people times 125 is roughly $18.4 billion. $18.4 billion. I'm not a math magician, but that's a lot more than $300 million. It's a large sum of money, right? It's also much, much, much larger than the $31 million they set aside to give people $125 if they so choose. You know what that means? They never wanted you to get that money in the first place. Never. In fact, the FTC is doing the corporate bidding of Equifax by warning people and discouraging them for seeking the monetary compensation. Instead, they say, why don't you just take the credit monitoring, you peasant, you pleb? Just take what little we're offering you for, losing, for allowing Equifax to give that data to hackers. by having poor security. Just take what little crumbs we give you already and shut up about it. I mean, Jesus, man. They never wanted you to get that money. Ever. Ever. What a terrible settlement. And that was the point, by the way. Because when you have corporations that capture the government, as a lot of these credit monitoring companies and a lot of big corporations have through legal bribes known as campaign expenditures and donations, right? This is the result. This is what happens. We're the victims here. But to the FTC and to, as you can see, corporate media, it's the companies that's the victim of these greedy consumers wanting their money instead of the bogus product that they're offering. I mean, we can't opt out of being credit monitored, right? It's something that they just automatically do. That's our data, and that our data is being monetized and used, and when it's hacked, we don't get anything in return. That's ridiculous. It is gross. It is infuriating. And this settlement is obviously intended to defend corporate wrongdoing at any cost. That $300 million is a slap in the wrist for a company like Equifax. This is corruption, and they're rubbing it in our face. You got to get the money out of politics and end this ridiculous, horrible corruption. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Thank you for signing up to be a super chat or signing up to be a patron. Thank you for the super chats as well. Thank you for everyone who's liked and shared the stream. Please like and share the videos as well later on when they get released. And thank you guys. And that's it. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Have a great weekend, guys. See you on Monday.